Hello and welcome to the Poor Hammer Podcast, episode 30. I'm your host, Brad. This is my co-host, Eric.
How's it going?
We have a fun little episode for you guys today.
I mean, little in air quotes, we'll see.
I'm hoping it doesn't take an hour.
But you have a passion.
I do have a passion for Necrons. This is a new type of episode, so please give feedback on it once you've listened to / watched it. We're going to be doing a list breakdown. This isn't some meta army list that just won a tournament. In fact, this is a style of army that, through checking every winning Necron list in the past few weeks, I found 0 that were close to a build like this. However, I've had some success with it, and I think it's an interesting way to play Necrons. It's nostalgic. So without any further ado, let's jump into this.
Sounds good. So I guess before we get into the whole thing, Necrons have seen a massive resurgence from the latest changes that they did compared to, what they were at.
Yes, we're recording this in what is Warzone Nephilim season. I don't know when you're listening or watching this, what season you're in, but that's where we are. Previously, Necrons were in a terrible spot because the Codex was written for the beginning of 8th edition, at the beginning of 9th edition, and then we had stuff like Tyranids, which is already playing 10th edition.
I mean, yeah. They did do some balance updates, and Necrons changed probably the most out of everything.
Yes, to be honest, the current Necrons looks nothing like the Codex. The Codex lies to you for several full pages at this point.
Yeah, and it's not just like small things. It's like a core functionality of how the army works has been changed with the command protocols.
Right. So command protocols used to be terrible and link you to your characters and
in an aura.
And you had to choose them all pre-game and hope that you chose the right turn for them and everything else. And now it's like you get one all game. The other ones you get to do the old way still. And you don't have to be in an aura of a character in order to get them. And if they blow up your noble, you don't lose all of your army rules.
Right.
Great changes.
Yeah, it actually makes things a lot easier for everything, and good changes.
Now, the other change I'm less thrilled with.
Core for everything.
So, core was awful in the original Necron Codex.
It looked like they were trying to do something and then just said fuck it for every other codex afterwards.
Yeah, it was 5 datasheets had core.
Yeah.
5 whole datasheets in the Necron Codex had core. Whereas it came out with Space Marines as the other one. Space Marines, I think, may have had 5 datasheets without core.
Right.
All of them being tanks. If it had 2 legs or 2 or 4 wheels, it had core in Space Marines. That includes the Dreadnoughts, even though they're mechs. For some reason, they count as not being giant vehicles and instead got the core treatment.
Yeah.
Rage of the past aside, to apologize to Necrons for how they were treated, they kind of went overboard on core.
They did, yes.
And they did it in the laziest possible way where, now our vehicle characters are core, because rather than list out a bunch of core vehicles, they said, if vehicle equal core.
Yeah.
Silent King being core is a little bit stupid.
Yeah, and I mean, it's one of those that, I like the fact that they've added core to a lot of things, but because of that, there's some problematic datasheet. Yeah, Silent King shouldn't be core. It's not. Doesn't make sense. It's not balanced like that. But whatever. I mean, Necrons have gone through a year of just being shit on, not worth anything. And now you get to have some fun because your army has substantially less restrictions on how to be competitive.
And there's a lot of ways to play it. There's 3 ways things are going right now. You've got the good stuff datasheets list where it's just a bunch of Wraiths, Scorpec Destroyers.
Yeah.
Scarabs, they're not core, but they're just amazing for what they do.
They're just point-wise super annoying.
Yeah, so you've got your good stuff 0 synergy list. Then you've got the second list, which is the Novak melee destroyer/flayed ones list, where you've got Ophidian fast attacks. You've got Scorpec Destroyers and Flayed Ones eating up the elite slots for the heavy hitters in melee. And you could just go all in on Novak Dynasty, huge buffs to melee, and smash face.
Yeah, which is interesting because, like, previously I didn't give a shit if a Necron got a melee. It's like, okay, funny.
And then you've got the third type of list I see a lot is your double Catan lists.
Which is super cool that that's a thing.
I was a big proponent of double Catan early this edition when everything sucked, so you might as well have some fun.
Yeah, I mean, you even talked about making, like, a Catan list, so
yeah,
as, like, a fun thing,
So I'm really happy to see that's doing well, and that, like, basically every single Catan datasheet, I've seen Deceiver showing up now, and Deceiver was by far the worst of them originally.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways to play Necron successfully. The point is, rather than any of those, we're going to do a list discussion on a fourth way to play Necrons that I think has a lot of good play currently.
Okay, so I guess why did you choose to do these instead of those other ones, especially the Catan ones? Because I know you liked that idea.
Because I haven't done this before, and it deals with the new change. The new change being all vehicles are core.
Okay, so you went heavy vehicle.
No matter how dumb it is that this vehicle has core.
Cool.
So I will say this list has a skeleton that I will walk you through. Haha, Necron's skeleton, grade A puns.
Skull joke.
And then we will walk through the options on how to finish out the list and talk about my example list of what I would play.
Okay.
So to begin things, you only need a spearhead to do this. So we'll start with a spearhead containing a catacomb command barge as your HQ. Take a technomancer and you take your canoptic cloak, which costs 0 points now. Fantastic. When he has that, it allows the technomancer to heal vehicles once per turn like a tech marine can. And unlike Rites of Reanimation, where it's written wrong, and that happens in your command phase, the canoptic cloak is written correctly at the end of movement phase, so you can move into position to heal something.
Very nice.
Then that's going to eat up 220 points of HQs. Then we're just going to fill out heavy supports with 3 Doomsday Arcs, because we've got no chill, and a pair of Annihilation Barges. The third one I would say is an option for later. And then for flyers, we do want to cap out at the 2 allowed in a 2,000 point game and get 2 Doom Scythes. That rounds out the list at 1,280 points. I recommend basically always spending the extra 20 points on the Technomancer to give them the Hypermaterial Ablator, which is the thing where you can choose a friendly core unit within 9 inches of the bearer, and then until the start of your next command phase, range attacks against them from more than 12 inches away, let it have light cover.
Isn't that like an expensive upgrade, or did they change that?
All of them got changed, so it's only 20 points.
Okay. I mean, that's still not nothing, but...
But at the same time, 20 points to give one of your Doomsday Arcs that's stuck out in the open,
right,
light cover, is pretty good.
Because there's always going to be at least one that's like, you can't deal with that much terrain and that much cover. It's just not possible.
Like, Necrons have problems. Like, Doomsday Arcs moving makes them basically worthless.
Yeah. So
you kind of want to park them out in the open where they get blown up.
Yeah.
So you want to, like, mitigate the blowing up as much as possible.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay.
So that's what we're going to call the skeleton of the list. This is where I start. You can add on that last 700 points however you want. The most obvious standout choice being the Silent King.
I was like, I know what 400 of it is. Because that data sheet is not okay right now.
So the Silent King has about 100 buffs on him. It's not worth reading the data sheet. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can pause and read that monstrosity.
And it's probably scrolling by as it takes forever.
It won't fit on the page.
Yeah. I mean, it probably won't. He's got like 15 different abilities or something stupid.
In my codex, it takes up the entire page.
Yeah.
Not every ability on his sheet is a positive. Like, it's kind of a bait and switch where several of the abilities just say, hey, take this part of the data sheet away when you get X wounds taken.
Sure, but like, still.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of things going on.
So before we talk about the other options, let's finish off our Silent King discussion here. If you take him, you make him the Warlord, obviously, because you have to.
Because you get the points back.
Yeah. I do not ever think with the current version of command protocols you'll ever sink a CP into giving him his Warlord trait.
Okay.
In this list, at least. There may be arguments for it in other lists. I won't lie, I haven't paid too much attention to Necrons other than as preparation for this video. I've been mostly enjoying myself in Tempest of War, and I don't know much about the competitive scene right now for Necrons other than what I looked up all day today.
Yeah, just kind of doing your own thing, which is fair. I mean, Necrons are in a point where like it seems like you can kind of do your own thing.
So the key part of his datasheet is you've got his Pharaon of the Stars ability, which is Necron core units and Triarch Praetorian units within 6 inches of Sarek. Each time a ranged attack is made by a model in that unit, you can re-roll the hit.
So it's just 6-inch reroll range.
Yeah.
To basically everything, because like all of your vehicles are core.
Yeah, and he has the My Will Be Done ability to get +1 to hit to a target every turn. And he has Pharaon baked into his data sheet, which means he gets to use that twice. So he can tell 2 things to shoot at +1 to hit, reroll everything.
Yeah, and that My Will Be Done is command phase, right?
Yeah, that is command phase.
Because like basically everything for you is like choose at command phase.
That's how all of the chapter master abilities work. It's always command phase, unless like we're talking like the weirder stuff when you get into chaplains and stuff in other armies.
Yeah.
So what we're looking at, if you use Silent King and you park him next to these vehicles, is some absolutely disgusting buffs where you can give them 2 of them +1 to hit, reroll everything on your Tesla models. If you target Annihilation Barge, you can fish for 6s.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
For a ton of explosions.
That seems good.
And then he himself has a pair of really good Doomsday Cannon equivalents with his Annihilator beams on the Menhirs.
Okay.
They're strength 12, AP -4, damage flat 6.
Ooh, nice.
1 shot each.
Still.
To be honest, if you've ever used a Doomsday Arc, you know that they always fire 1 shot anyway.
Right.
D6 equals 1.
Sometimes 2 if you're feeling real lucky.
Sometimes you spend the CP to do the reroll or on the D6 and you get the 1 after getting the 2.
Yeah, exactly. I can upgrade this. But yeah, I mean, it's just one of those like the Silent King honestly is just really good, and it also works well with the fact that all of your stuff is core and it's buffing them to do just better damage, essentially.
Yeah. So when I take Silent King in this list, I'm looking at Silent King plus the Catacomb Command Barge still staying around to give you 3 My Will Be Dones. You give the Catacomb Command Barge a Warlord trait and a relic. You always choose the same ones. It's the ones you choose in every army. It's Enduring Will and the Voltaic Staff.
Okay.
I guess in like melee lists, sometimes you use Implacable Conqueror, but that's different. Yeah, so Silent King is absolutely disturbing with Doomsday Arcs, where he can make them hit on 2s, reroll those awful 1s on Doomsday Cannons. With Doom Scythes, I really like on turn 1, giving the +1 to hit to Doom Scythes before sending them right to the opponent's back line to hit whatever needs hitting.
Yeah, because those move 40, 50?
Yeah, and again, our aircraft are core for some reason because they were very lazy applying the last set of core changes.
Yeah, we've never had issues with core flying things.
We've never had issues with flyers in 40k in 9th edition.
Yeah, but I mean, that does sound good because, like, command phase, you're like, hey, Doom Scythes, you're better now. Go off and destroy them.
Yeah. Now, the sad part is they're not going to get to reroll all hits with their giant Tesla weapons.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're never going to be within that close range of Silent King when they're actually firing.
No, because the Silent King is going to be staying with other things. He only moves not fast.
Silent King's basically just going to be babysitting all of your heavy hitters in the back line anyway.
Yeah, and dealing with anything that makes it there.
He'll try to hide behind a building for like turn 1, maybe turn 2, with the Doomsday Arcs on the outside, trying to be in the way, shooting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then he'll come out to play once the main part of the game is over and it's time to sweep everything up.
Yeah.
But the Doom Scythes, when they're hitting on 2s, are pretty devastating when they just show up in your opponent's back line turn 1.
Yeah, definitely.
You've got 10 shots of strength 7, no AP Tesla, so 6s explode twice.
Right.
Which averages 10 hits normally. When you're hitting on 2s, it's more than that. And then the heavy death ray, which is just the Doomsday Cannon but much better.
Oh, yeah.
Is 3 flat shots always. Strength 12, AP -4, damage D3 +3.
Yeah, that's just better.
Which is pretty reliable when you're hitting on 2s.
Yeah.
It's basically getting 3 hits and probably you could average 2 wounds no matter what. Like even if you failed one of the hits, you'll probably hit the other 2 wounds.
And at AP -4? Like,
Yeah. You can assume that a pair of Doom Scythes, if you point them at anything, you can make it go away turn 1. If it's not like Mortarion tier.
yeah. I mean, there's always exceptions, but...
But like in my example game from this weekend, I didn't even run Silent King in that list, which was mostly because he was in 10 parts on the table still getting painted.
Yeah, I was like, why are you not playing Silent King? You're insane. And you're like, well, he's not. He's not finished. Like, okay, I guess that's fair.
I'm taking a long time to paint that damn model.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's fair.
My wife bought me him for my birthday a year and change ago.
Yeah, I was like, it wasn't the last one. But I mean, yeah, at the time, like Necron, you weren't playing Necrons basically until they made him not trash. So
yeah. So in that list, I used a Catacomb Command Barge to give the +1 to hit to one of my Doom Scythes. Sent them to the back line, and I was against Sisters, and it was a bloodbath. Like, they had stuff hiding behind buildings and in buildings, and it just did not matter. We'll get into this part of the list. Before we talk about all the other options that aren't the Silent King, let's talk about command protocols.
Okay.
So, with this army, we're a heavy shooting army, obviously, no matter how we build this with the core that I gave it.
Yeah, I would say that Annihilation Barges and Doomsday Arcs are generally shooting.
When I play this list, I'm looking at playing my all-game ability as Protocol of the Vengeful Stars. Like, at list building, I know I'm basically picking that 100% of games to be going for every turn of the game.
Okay, what does that one do?
Directive 1, because again, these are 2 directive things. This is Mephrit's. Directive 1 is each time a model in this unit makes a ranged attack on an unmodified wound roll of 6, improve the armor penetration characteristic of that attack by 1. Directive 2, each time a model in this unit makes a ranged attack that targets a unit within half range, the target does not receive the benefits of cover.
Okay.
So, with Vengeful Stars, if you're playing against something like Sisters or Space Marines, where the AP doesn't really matter, especially for your Tesla, where the first AP is terrible.
Yeah, the first is basically pointless.
Then I go Directive 2 all game.
Yep.
And just make it where I have ridiculously long ranges on most of my good shooting. Half range is not hard to hit on vehicles with this range characteristic. You'll then get to land a bunch of shots that they cannot receive the bonus of light cover for.
Yeah, which, I mean, it does make it more difficult to actually get to your units at that point without just getting blown off the board.
Yeah, and more importantly, those scythes that I sent into the Sisters' backline where they were hiding stuff in buildings, yeah, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Because it was a bloodbath. Even if they're all saving on 3s, they don't get to save on 2s because of the no cover save stuff. And you've got a huge amount of shots coming out of Tesla.
Exactly.
And then I was able to use the heavy death rays to blow up their rhinos and crap that were in the back line.
Okay.
It was really good, and I didn't even play the disgusting Silent King version.
Yeah. So, like, Vengeful Stars is what you're picking. How does the rest of it go, though?
That's all still up to the game and how we think it's going to play out.
So this list isn't one of those, like, it's railroaded into, like, these are just the choices?
No, especially because, like, we play Tempest of War.
Right. Which does mean you have to adapt.
Yeah, but we've been playing with the Nephilim CP changes. Tabletop Tactics has been doing it this way, too. I really like how they were doing it.
Yeah.
And we've been playing that way. If you were playing in, like, the match play from the Nephilim book with their rules, I think it's probably more railroaded on what you're going to pick because you're going to spend your last points in this list differently than I would, because you have to start thinking about winning the game on secondaries at list building. The whole discussion about, like, winning at list building in competitive right now.
Yeah, because you build the list around what secondaries you're going to be able to guarantee, essentially, and set stuff up for that. Whereas in Tempest, it's a random draw. You don't know where your secondaries are, so you kind of have to adapt as things go on.
But it is a sculpted random draw, as we'll get into, and it's why I went with the final list I did. So this is where we get into, we've got Silent King in the list, right?
Yeah.
We're sitting at, like, I think it's 1,700 points on the dot with what I've said so far.
Something like that, yeah.
Your last 300 points can be spent however you want to. The highlights for me on what you want to put into this list is for only 80 points and no other changes, you open up having a patrol as well, because you just move one of your HQs to the patrol. Yeah, it doesn't matter if you have Silent King, but you would move your Warlord to the patrol if you don't have Silent King. You take a group of Immortals to do this troop tax, and you end up at the exact same CP.
So that means you bring a bunch of scarabs, right?
You don't have to. Like, I don't think that's right. You do open up 2 more heavy support slots if you really want to go just like super monkey and just
I support that.
we're doing one thing and it's a lot of heavy support.
Heck yeah, dude.
So you can go that way with the extra slots. You could, if you do those extra slots, remove some of the other points. Maybe don't run Silent King and play a double Catan list, one in the spearhead and then one in the patrol.
Okay.
If you're going to run any Catan, I would say
Transcendent?
they're all about the same to me in this specific list, and Void Dragon is just so on theme.
Okay.
Because he's the vehicle killer guy.
And it's definitely the coolest looking, so.
And he is by far the best looking Catan.
Like,
it's not even remotely close.
No.
Please update Nightbringer. If you don't want to bring a Catan, that's fine. There's lots of other options. We can do spiders, because spiders, can pump out a ton of damage through their twin gun thing up top. They only hit on 4s normally, but one of the things that I think I almost always put in the list is a second Technomancer, and you could have that one. Instead of taking an extra cloak for an extra Tech Marine heal, you could take the Canoptic units hit on 3s.
Okay.
Spiders also are core now, as of the newest change.
Of course they are.
So you could target them to hit on 3s. They also have fabrication arrays, which let them heal vehicles, which makes up for its 5 points, and it makes up for the second Technomancer not taking the cloak.
Okay.
And these spiders pump out a ton of shots. Like, in my list, I did the spider canoptic version because it was kind of like a mixed older list before core even existed that I mutated.
Okay.
Well, core existed on these, you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So a 75-point build on a spider gives it the fabrication claw array, so it does the heal. And for the 10 extra points that are on there, you have 12 shots at 501.
12 shots at 501. That's pretty good.
Yeah. So,
I mean, not great when you're hitting on 4s, but
when you're hitting on 3s,
with the hitting on 3s, that's actually pretty good.
Yeah, it's disgusting when I was playing against sisters. But again, it was just a happenstance that I was playing against, toughness 3 models on 3-up saves. Although the shot count is just so high, even against stuff like Custodes. I don't think that's that bad.
Well, yeah, and I mean, it's still the same thing of like the first AP is the worst.
Yeah.
So like 0 and 1, whatever, dude.
At least against a good chunk of the game. I don't like when everyone uses Armor of Contempt as an argument for everything, but I think in list building, it's allowed to slant your list.
Oh, yeah.
Because so many armies have it, and one of them is Space Marines, which is just the most common army.
And I think that's the thing, is like, when you think about it, you think about like, what are the lists that you're likely to go up against? And you're going to go up against somebody with Armor of Contempt if you're playing multiple rounds. Like, it's just going to happen. But yeah, I mean, that actually an interesting little spider blob.
Yeah, because like you only need the fabrication array on one of them unless you really want to go ham, but it's kind of awkward to try to make use of 2 in the same turn. You can pay 5 points for a Gloom Prism for a deny.
That's annoying.
It's kind of neat. Spiders are amazing sinks for the last points in a list.
I was just thinking that same thing. I was like, if you had like 5 points left over, you just put it on there and like just out of nowhere, I got a deny. That's cool. Yeah.
And it's by spider. So you can have one of them take all the options. The other one just takes the gun, and then you start wounding the gun one first. So you have all the options till the final spider dies with only spending the points once.
Exactly. Yeah. Basically adding wounds onto that one.
Yeah. The spider one is like a really fun one, and I endorse trying it. I don't think it's like my default. While we're still in the elite slot, we can talk about the Triarch Stalker, which is obviously the vehicle that I didn't put in this list. It's just really bad.
Is it really?
So the Triarch Stalker, because it's a Triarch unit, it's not actually part of your dynasty.
Oh, okay.
It is core because it is a vehicle. So it's kind of dumb that it's not your dynasty, but it is core. But it makes it very strange on things it can and can't do. I tried running one. I would not recommend it. Doesn't really matter which gun you give it. It's just awkward compared to taking anything else. Especially now that like all of the more expensive vehicles have come down in price to be somewhat reasonable.
I was just going to say, yeah, for the point cost of the Triarch Stalker at 120.
125 for if it's got the heat cannon, and then it's even more if you take the gauze.
Yeah, that's just not entirely competitive to your other options of what you're doing there.
No. I like the big spider robot thing that the guy is piloting. It's neat. It's not good.
Sure.
Before we leave Elites, there's also the option of Crypto Thralls for your Technomancers. Here is my little spicy thing. My list, I purposely dodged taking Crypto Thralls. The reason is they're technically infantry.
Okay.
In Tempest of War, the cards are worded in a way not to screw you if you take like a weird slant list like Knights or something.
Oh, yeah.
And they go, here's an infantry action. If you have no infantry, just discard this and take a different one.
Right.
You get screwed if you take a random infantry unit that is not good at doing that stuff.
Yeah, that actually, I did not think of that at all, but that does matter in Tempest.
It happened to me because I played the extra slots in my original list where I was like, okay, I want more heavy support slots. I'll play the Patrol and play the Immortals. And in Tempest, that screwed me with one of the cards I pulled where I'm like, well, I have my Immortals literally here to sit on a random point, and they're screwing me out of getting a good card I could actually do a secondary on.
Yeah.
So that's why I say it's a sculpted random draw. If you build your list right, you don't get as many bad draws. And I did not.
Fair enough.
Doesn't matter, won the game. But moving on to Fast Attack, there's always Scarabs.
Yeah.
They are always good.
I mean, that's just like what I would expect to see because they're just so annoying.
Yeah, and they're just really fun to play with. I love them. Self-destruct is the coolest stratagem.
And like they're cheap too, like point wise.
Oh yeah, stupid cheap.
They're like nothing. So
if Necrons weren't like the poster child bad guys of the edition, where they're trying to get people to play them so they start playing the game,
sure,
they would have been treated like Nurglings, where they keep getting punted and punted and punted with all sorts of problems. Like, Nurglings are now, like, I think, like, 7 or 8 points a model more than they were at the start of the edition, where they were still, like, 2 points more than a Scarab for essentially the same type of unit.
Yeah.
It's just very, very strange for how much Scarabs have gotten away with this edition. They're at least not core.
I was just going to ask, they didn't get core, right? Like,
No.
Okay.
They knew how much Scarabs were not okay. They don't want to nerf them because it's bad PR at this point, and they're not that busted.
Yeah, and it was like, do we really want to hit Necrons? Like,
no. I have a feeling Scarabs are going to be...
They're not going to be great in 10th edition.
They're going to be shelf fodder quietly between editions.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other fast attack option is Tomb Blades, which, yeah, technically not vehicles, just bikes, but they're incredibly mobile. For like 0 points, you can give them a Particle Beamer. Particle Beamer is 6 shots at 501.
Okay.
It's what the Spider has 2 of on its back.
Yeah.
And they're just really mobile for doing actions if you want to play like an action monkey unit, as long as a bike can do that action. They're also great for like controlling quarters, getting something into an opponent's back line, whatever.
And these are core, right?
They were core the whole edition.
Okay.
They're just really bad compared to a lot of other options.
Fair enough. I wasn't sure because I was like, I don't remember like them becoming core. So
yeah, they serve a purpose over just picking Immortals or something in this specific type of list.
Okay.
The nice ultra mobile bodies is very interesting.
Well, especially when like you have so many points locked up in the back to not move to like completely screw your shooting.
That's exactly why, because like if you've got Silent King, 3 arcs, some Doom Scythes that don't really count for like where they are and can't do actions because they're airplanes.
Yeah.
Well, technically I think there's like 1 in Tempest you can do, but I don't want to talk about it.
Sure.
If you've got all of that tied up elsewhere, you really feel the need for having some mobile action monkeys.
Yeah. To just kind of like do stuff in the other parts of the board that are not the main concern.
Yeah, and like they're no slouches either. It's like what, 30 shots for 100 points?
That's not bad.
That's a lot of garbage shots to throw into something.
Are they ballistic 3 or 4?
3.
3? Okay.
They are only save 4 unless you buy their little upgrade packages that are per model. They're like buying cars. It's hilarious. They've got like 15 different little 3-point ticks of taxes you can take. Oh man, they would be so much better if they were like all the Marine models and their options became free. Ooh, Doom Blades would be amazing.
Yeah, that'd be neat. Because that one of them's like a invuln, isn't it?
One's an invuln, one's an improved save, and then the last one is like they can't take cover saves or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not really worth the point upgrades, but if they're free, yeah. Okay. So it's one of those that like you've got a heavy backline that just parks and is just trying to blow up the board and shooting.
Yeah.
And then you've got like 2 Doom Scythes flying around, getting in their backline and messing them up.
Now, that said, this is an oversimplification, but we'll get into how the list plays in a second.
Well, yeah.
So for the final options here, we have take the 3rd Annihilation Barge, which is what I would do. I just think having the extra Annihilation Barge just works really well, which is weird because it's a bad vehicle. It's just because of how core and everything has affected this, it's actually pretty arguable now. The data sheet itself wouldn't be worth it, but...
Sure. You're just using the twin Teslas. You're not, like, upgrading the Gauss cannons on them?
No, I do the Gauss cannon on all of them.
Oh, you do the Gauss cannon on all of them. Okay.
Yeah, which we can talk about. The other option is to take Canoptic Doomstalkers, which are the bad Doomsday Arcs that are Canoptic, and then you have to be taking the tax of the Technomancer that lets them hit on 3s instead of 4s. If you're going to do that, just as an aside, pay the extra CP to give that Technomancer an extra Warlord trait and have it be Thrall of the Silent King. It will make his aura 9 inches, so then you can park those things really far apart.
Yeah.
And just have him sitting in the middle, and you can pay for the upgrade where you can only shoot him if he's the closest model, which I think is like 15 points or 20 points.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
But I did that in my original list when I had the extra slots. It was neat. It's not the best way to play this, but it's cool. And it was an excuse to also use the spiders, because it was kind of like a Canoptic / vehicle list when I did it. And then there's the elephant in the room that is the Tesseract Arc. It's pretty good. It's not as arguable now that everything else has gone down in points. Doomsday Arcs have fallen, I think, 40 points per model since the Tesseract Arc was the better option. I mean, Tesseract Arc was the better option the whole time, but it's just rough because it's a Forge World model.
Yeah, I don't know. I've got opinions on Forge World models.
So do I, which is why I'm never going to tell someone to pick the Tesseract Arc.
Honestly, I'm not even sure it's the right call anymore. Like, it's a substantial point upgrade.
That's the only thing, and that's why I think the Doomsday Arcs are clearly the superior pick for the first ones now.
Yeah.
Back when they were the same price, you would never pick a Doomsday Arc over a Tesseract Arc.
Well, no.
Now they're like 30 plus points cheaper before options.
Yeah, which is like, that's a lot. You get scarabs for that, man.
Yeah. Now, that said, if you have a Tesseract Arc or 2 laying around...
Sure, it's not bad.
Because you're a rich person.
And you have no taste.
It is an ugly-ass model. I'd argue I don't like how the Doomsday Arc looks.
Really?
But the Tesseract Arc takes the cake for ugly-ass models.
Aw, dude, I like the Doomsday Arc.
I don't like the ribcage thing. I get the bone aesthetic.
Yeah.
I don't like the ribcage thing. It feels too...
Like, it's dumb. It's stupid.
It's too fantasy, where like...
Yeah. Oh, it's completely impractical and dumb, but I like it for that exact reason.
Yeah, it reminds me of like the fantasy vampire counts where you've got the corpse cart with the bones.
Yeah.
It's that look.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not how the lore works for the Necrons. It's literally just some artist made the funny picture before they had lore, and everyone was like, ha, that's hilarious, let's do that.
Yeah. I'm totally on board with the ha, that's hilarious, let's do that.
Yeah, so it doesn't help that I am soured because it is like the worst model to paint and assemble.
Oh, I bet.
Holy God, is a Ghost Arc / Doomsday Arc the worst thing ever made. The epitome of Necron modeling.
Just dunk it. Call it good.
Up there with the final thing in this list, which is Illuminor Ceres. Worst model ever to assemble. Joy to paint. Unlike the Doomsday Arc, which is awful in both cases.
Yeah?
Illuminor Ceres is an awkward option because I kind of hate how he works. He basically works by mistake.
Okay.
His stuff targets core. It doesn't even target dynastic core. He just cares about core because he's a dynastic agent.
Sure.
So technically he can buff the Silent King and he can re-raise Menhirs.
Right.
So Silent King can be near immortal with him unless you one-shot him.
Which, gonna be tough.
Gonna be tough, especially because you can hide Silent King and all that other jazz.
Yeah, because he gets around the wound count because a bunch of his wounds are not actually his.
And Ceres can increase the toughness of Silent King and strength and ballistic skill, but that doesn't matter because he hits on 2s. And more importantly, turn 1, Ceres is a pretty good pick to buff a Doom Scythe because toughness and strength don't really do much, but if you hit the ballistic skill, it will permanently hit on 2 all game, which is a really nice little buff since they're not going to be in many auras often.
Right, because his buff is...
It's just for the rest of the game, you're this.
Yeah, it just changes the data sheet essentially for that game.
The toughness actually does matter on Doom Scythes because I forgot it doesn't have quantum shielding.
Mm.
It's the only vehicle other than like Silent King who does not have quantum shielding for balance reasons. It's like the only vehicle they didn't put it on.
Okay.
So you actually care about toughness. It's just if you hit strength, it's a miss, but take the gamble on turn 1 if you play him.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a huge gamble because like the downside is nothing happens.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's not really a gamble.
That said, I do love Saris's model.
Really?
I love the Spider-Man. He is so fucking cool.
I'm not sold on him. He looks like a weird like crab thingy.
Yeah, I love him. He's also a complete bastard. Like, lore-wise, what a douche.
Yeah.
Like, oh boy.
Okay.
He is a mustache-twirling villain.
Nice. I approve.
There's no like, oh, it's the complexity of everyone is... No. Like, he is awful. There's a reason on his model he is ripping the skin off a guy and putting it into an orb just for shits and giggles.
Nice. Completely insane.
Yeah. Okay, so that's all our options. So let's talk about my final list and what everything is doing and why I chose it all.
Okay.
What we're playing here is essentially what used to be called Necron Parking Lot, but I'm not going to play Necron with it, and I'll explain why in a minute.
Okay.
So, my final list contains a Catacomb Command Barge and Technomancer with a Dynastic Advisor for an extra Technomancer. The Silent King is my Warlord, obviously. My Catacomb Command Barge, I take 2 extra CP on it so that I can give it Enduring Will as the Warlord trait and Voltaic Staff as the Relic.
So, on the Catacomb Command Barge, why do you take the Voltaic Staff?
You always take it because it's just the best generalist weapon that you can get on a command barge. It's called making it a slap barge.
Okay.
It's Tesla, so I can take him with the Gauze Cannon, which I always take the Gauze Cannon.
Okay, yeah.
You give him the Voltaic Staff, he still has Tesla, so that when he fires the Voltaic Staff, you can then use Malefic Arcing still, which is a fantastic stratagem. I spam it all the time in this list. That's the one where it does a mortal wound in AoE.
Yeah.
Wherever on any given turn you're looking, you should be looking for where is the best spot to aim any Tesla weapon during the shooting phase and then trigger Malefic Arcing. I think it's Malevolent Arcing.
Probably Malevolent Arcing, given that it does mortals. That's just like 1 CP.
Yeah,
right.
And you just spam it. The CP you get on any given turn is going to go into that to cause a bunch of mortal wounds in an area, especially against castle armies. Like if they've got a bunch of buff characters surrounding a bunch of weak 5-man units, all day. Sisters, Space Marines, CSM, all of those.
It's pretty common that there's going to be a group that you get to go off on them. So
yeah, and if you're paying a CP for on average like 3 mortal wounds, 2 mortal wounds probably on average, it's probably worth it.
Okay.
Just to break up castles.
So the Voltaic Staff lets you keep all of that going on. That's why you're upgrading it.
On him, which is the minor bonus. The big thing is that the Voltaic Staff is just the best all-rounder weapon.
Okay.
You get your 4 shots during the shooting phase at strength 6, -2, flat 2 damage, but it's Tesla, so 6s double explode.
Right.
So it's a lot of possible damage output just in shooting it.
Yeah, 2 up ballistic skill, yeah.
Yeah, and then in melee, because it's a Catacomb Command Barge it's equipped to, it goes up to strength 6, because it's +1.
Okay.
-2, flat 2.
Yeah. So it's not good, but it's not bad either.
It's about the best you can ask for on a Necron.
Okay, that's fair. That makes more sense, because it was just one of those, like, you've used the Voltaic Staff a few times, and I've always been like, but why?
Yeah, it's
like, it seems like a decent commitment to it.
If you read what we have access to,
yeah, it makes more sense now.
The first Technomancer is the one I invest into. It's got the Canoptic Cloak, which both of them have.
Okay.
Then it takes the relic for a CP of Veil of Darkness, which is our teleport relic. Then I take the Cryptic Arcana of Hypermaterial Ablator, which again is the light cover for anything over 12 inches away.
Yeah.
1 unit per turn. Because you can drop that on like a barge or whatever that you're babysitting, or a Doomsday Arc or...
whatever's around. Basically all of your army that you've put together in this list shoots. So
here's the screwy part. Because of the core change, the Ablator can target Silent King,
yep,
Catacomb Command Barge, you name it.
Yep.
Which is awkward because it gives them light cover on things that definitely shouldn't get it.
True.
And Veil of Darkness went from, at the beginning of the edition, being absolutely terrible because it hit 5 entire data sheets, to I can teleport a Doomsday Arc out of combat.
Oh, really?
Because it teleports anything that's core. I can teleport Silent King across the battlefield.
That's scary. I did not know that.
Yes, because Veil of Darkness was limited by core, which was really annoying because Scorpec Destroyers, the thing you would want to be Veil of Darknessing, weren't core. Flayed Ones, the other one, aren't core, so you're basically stuck doing it on warrior blobs. So yeah, Veil of Darkness is way more interesting now, but now it's to the point where it's just screwy with the current rules.
Yeah. And you're giving the Veil of Darkness to your Techno?
Yeah, the Technomancer, because he's going to be babysitting probably like the main Doomsday arc, Doomstack.
Sure. And then, like, maybe he needs to go somewhere else.
It's either he has to go somewhere else so you emergency use it, or like you get charged and you can pull him and one of the arcs out of combat.
Sure.
Or, teleport Silent King into your opponent's backline after you cause a hole with your Doom Scythes or whatever.
Yeah. There's a lot of play because of that now, but okay, that makes sense.
It is more important than the Voltaic Staff. I'll give it that.
Yeah.
Then my second Technomancer just has the cloak, 70-point model, no bells or whistles. That one, I'll figure out where it goes on any given game.
Sure.
Then we get to fast attacks because I didn't take any elites, I didn't take any troops. I'm taking 5 Tomb Blades and a minimum loadout just with particle beamers, nothing else. 100 points.
Okay.
Technically, this list has 5 points missing, so I guess I could give one, a 4-up invuln or a 3-up save or something. Or 5-up invuln, whatever it is.
Yeah, something.
Whatever.
But, yeah, I mean, I actually kind of like those just because they are fast. Like,
yeah, I wanted a fast action monkey. We play mostly Tempest of War. I checked the cards, and they say, like, for the ones that are really awkward, it's always like, if you don't have infantry, skip this one.
yeah. And, like, I mean, it's just one of those that having mobility in this list when you have so little mobility from all of your other stuff.
So that's what you keep saying. And I want to talk about my 3 Annihilation Barges.
Okay.
They're pretty fast as fuck, boy. For those unaware, the Annihilation Barge has a flat move characteristic of 12. If it started that move near one of the lords, it's 13. It's a 14-inch move if you're in your +1 to move range turn, which is usually the turn it matters, turn 1 or 2, you're taking that. And it has fly, so it can ignore vertical distances. You can haul ass with anti-barges. They can zoom around as needed. And they're pretty junky at 125 points. I tend to use them as like put them somewhere somewhat suicidal, cause a bunch of damage, and be a pain in the ass for my opponent so that they're not hitting my real things, which is like the Doomsday arcs in the back.
Right.
And to distract from the Doom Scythes, which are the real thing you should take care of turn 1 because they're going to piss you off the whole game.
Yeah.
All my anti-barges do take a Gauss cannon. I like the mix-up that you have when you have the Twin Tesla Destructor for the 701 shots, 10 of them, Tesla. And then you've got the Gauss cannon, which is only strength 6 instead of 7, but it's at -3 AP and damage D3, so you can get multi-damage hits in.
Right.
So 3 shots of that just beats the wimpy under Tesla for 5 points. I just think I always take it.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. I like Teslas just because exploding's cool, but...
Yeah, I think the main Tesla cannons are doing enough for that I don't need to add a worse Tesla.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then, of course, your 3 Doomsday arcs, which are like the core of this list. They're going to park in the back and blow crap up. And then the pair of Doom Scythes that we knew were going to be here. So that is my final version at 1995. Again, for the last 5 points, you can upgrade the weapon on one of the Tomb Blades or give one a Shadow Loom or Shield Veins or whatever.
Sure.
Don't care. You could always switch some stuff around, take any of the other options. This is just the one that I would play next. I do want to play one with Saris, even though I don't like the Saris Silent King combo. I think it's really cheesy.
Yeah, I do not approve of the Saris Silent King.
Yeah, I like the idea of Saris in general, and he's just not a great model. So
Right.
Him being useful for 10 minutes, I'd like to play him once after I paid all that money for him and paid all that blood, sweat, and tears putting that fucker together. That model, people who have built that model know.
Yeah,
It's
one of those.
It's horrid.
Yeah, I mean, out of this, I love what you're doing here. Like, it's an interesting take on Necrons. It's one of those that, like, not seeing Scarabs is weird to me.
Yeah, and Scarabs, again, could be another perfect choice. You could delete the Tomb Blades, add Scarabs, and you'd still have a good list.
It just feels wrong.
Here's my thought, though. We need to talk about my Dynasty and why I picked some stuff.
That's true. You've been hyping that up as, like, some special thing. So let's hear what Dynasty you chose.
The default smooth brain pick is to play Mefrit because the list used to be called Mefrit Parking Lot.
Sure.
Mephrit's really bad right now.
Oh, yeah.
For those who don't know, Mephrit's main thing is its static ability of within half range -1 AP.
Which is not particularly great on the first AP.
It used to be fantastic because it meant in half range Tesla had an AP.
Right.
And it didn't really matter on like the big cannons. But for all your Tesla, all your Gauss, fantastic. Doom Scythes have their flare arrays, which is a lot of shots. Improving the AP on those is great.
Right.
So the problem is, we're using a lot of our points for what is essentially bodies carrying Tesla shots. AP is bad on Tesla now because 40% of lists you play against have Armor of Contempt.
Yeah.
So I would not play Mephrit. The other thing that people point out is Mephrit is the Vengeful Stars subfaction. The problem is the second ability is always the least impactful. So you're picking the good one on any given turn, and then the second one is your bonus points. As we talked about, I basically go Vengeful Stars, knowing that I'm going to take away cover saves for the whole game.
Right. And then, Armor Pen is kind of neat if you're not up against Armor of Content.
On a 6, you improve the Armor Pen by 1.
Yeah.
No.
Cool.
No, that's not worth. So instead, I say go custom Dynasty.
Blah.
And the important one to me is Interplanetary Invaders, which is one that no one knows unless they've done looking into lists like this, which is vehicle units with this code are eligible to shoot in a turn in which they fell back. If they do, they subtract 1.
Okay.
The second half of it is more important. Vehicle models of this code do not suffer the penalty to hit rolls incurred from firing heavy weapons within engagement range. It means you don't have to back up to shoot. You can just fire your Annihilation Barge Tesla in melee.
That's pretty big.
You don't have to fall back.
That makes a lot more sense on why you're talking about moving your Annihilation Barges around.
Yes.
I'm like, dude, I'm not seeing it, man. Like, I get, like, sometimes you have to. But yeah, okay, if you're not, like, being shut off, basically.
You're basically suiciding them to steal a point because I took the thing that everyone always takes, Eternal Conquerors. Everybody clap, it's an OBSEC all dynasty. Huzzah.
Wow.
It's kind of like the use case for this dynasty, unfortunately. Like, I fucking hate it, and I've gone on the record for how much I hate this dynasty. Eternal Conquerors is very boring, and a lot of the power level of this codex got wrapped up in it, which is why the rest of the codex is, well, really trash until all the FAQs.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, it was the reason Necrons wasn't 0 wins.
Yeah, a 0% win rate army because Eternal Conquerors is broken.
Yeah. And it makes sense in this list. Like, this list is like, okay, you need something.
Yeah, I can't hold a point with a single model.
Right.
So giving my single model objective secured, suddenly I hold it against everything except for my opponent's troops, or whatever else they have with OBSEC.
Sure.
This is big because that means my Annihilation Barges move pretty well. They're very good trade pieces because they're low enough point value that I can jam them up board, fire a ton of Tesla, weaken a unit that I know is going to come after them. Unit comes after them, doesn't kill it within 1 turn, suicide fire the Tesla again while I'm holding the objective with objective secured.
Yeah.
And then, the next combat phase, they finally may kill me, or I actually manage to live with like a wound or 2 left.
And they also explode when they die.
The explode when they die is not to be joked about either because we have Wrath of the Pharaon for 1 CP of guaranteed explode.
Yeah, like it's like a valid strategy if you're doing that style of Annihilation Barge yeeting up the board.
I think I used it twice in the game I played where I force exploded something. One was an Annihilation Barge just for a final mortal wound on a Mortifier or something. I don't remember.
Okay.
Which I didn't realize it had to feel no pain. But anyway.
Hey, it's okay.
And the other one I think was my Doom Scythe in the back line or a Doomsday Arc or something that they tagged. I don't remember, but I got a ton of wounds off that.
Nice.
But yeah, so explosions are a serious business in the suicide vehicles army.
Yeah, and I mean, like, you're probably not hitting yourself just because of how you're going to be spreading out.
And if you do, you have big multi-wound single model, like, you're not worried.
Yeah, it's not a huge deal. You're definitely be doing more.
And you have living metal, which if your opponent kills you on their turn and you force explode and you cause a mortal wound to your vehicle, it just gets healed on your turn.
Yeah. Yeah. I always forget about living metal until, like, it happens and I'm like, damn it. I've been played.
Yeah. So if you're like super allergic to playing Eternal Conquerors, I understand.
Yeah.
There is a funny other thing you can pick. This is dumb. So there is Rad Wreathed, which is something that I played during our Crusade, where I played it with my Necron Crusade force. Rad Wreathed gives your entire army, units with this code have Rad Wreathed Aura. And then Rad Wreathed Aura is, while an enemy unit excluding vehicles is within 1 inch of this unit, subtract 1 from the toughness.
Yeah, I remember that.
So now that we can have a command protocol for the whole game, there is a funny little cheese thing. So first of all, if you're in melee combat and you fire, you're firing with them at -1 toughness, because it doesn't say against, it's not a melee only thing, it's just within 1 inch.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't even say an engagement range because it's an aura and it says a 1 inch aura. That would be extended by Thrall of the Silent King, making it 4 inches. Or you can have Protocol of the Conquering Tyrant all game with Directive 1, add 3 inches to the range of this unit's aura abilities.
Yeah, that seems annoying as shit.
and like it helps for like My Will Be Done's and Rites of Reanimation, whatever. But
sure.
The add 3 inches to auras means Rad Wreath is now a 4 inch. So now you just play hyper aggressive, park your stuff like right next to it, like with an Annihilation Barge or a Doomsday Arc, and you just get like 4 inches away and you just open fire while they're at -1 toughness. This is not nearly as good as just having OBSEC.
No, not even close.
But it's funny as shit.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely going to be one of those, like, how do you get your points once the enemy's gone kind of things. Like, You just blow them off the board and you're like, okay, let's figure out how to win from here now.
Yeah.
That's neat.
And again, you could just play Mephrit and you just deal with it. Like, you're still fine against non-Armor of Contempt armies.
Right.
It's still a very strong ability outside of Armor of Contempt's existence.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those, like, anything that does care about that first -1 AP is going to have real trouble with those Tesla from Mephrit. And not everybody has Armor of Contempt.
Nope. Again, I want to point out, like, I don't like always arguing Armor of Contempt. In list building, you should respect it.
It is common enough that you do need to keep it in mind.
Yeah. The other option is the generic, just go Zerakan Dynasty. It's just the generic, mostly defensive one of you have a 5-up Feel No Pain against mortals. And then you have the reroll 1 wound roll whenever you make an attack. It's not great. It's a lot worse than like the strictly better version that came out of Custodes, but hey, it exists.
Yeah, it's still useful. So
yeah. But anyway, that is the list. I've talked about it for far too long. Eric was right. I was wrong. I am mad.
I'm always right, dude.
I know. We knew this would take far too long because I would get into the weeds talking about all the details here.
Yeah, and I mean, like, at some point, we'll probably do an episode on the command protocols and, like, what these changes actually mean to army list building or something like that. Because, like, I know you've got a lot of thoughts on how it works now. So, but that's not for this episode.
Nope. If I missed anything, if you thought of something cool and clever for this list, just get at us, send us your info, and we'll be happy to read it and respond. That wraps up this topic, though, so let's get out of here.
Sounds good.